What's up, guys? So I received a great question from one of my subscribers, and they wanted to know what are the pros and cons of getting an older iPhone versus getting an older Galaxy flagship phone. So let's go ahead and discuss that. I thought that'd be a pretty fun video, to do for you guys. So let's go ahead and talk about the prices on these phones. All of these phones are pretty inexpensive, so let's just start off with the cheapest ones. The iPhone 7 you can get for around $100 on eBay. I'll try to put all those links down below. iPhone 10 will cost you around $300, and also the 10s will cost you around $350. The iPhone 8 Plus $300, the iPhone 8 around $200, and the 10R around $300 as well. The Samsung Galaxy phones sort of are in that same price category as well. The S10e, being the cheapest one I have right here, will cost you anywhere between $200 to $250. The S10 around $270. It's kind of in that, the price kind of fluctuates with that one, but it can go up or down. I've seen them go for like $230. You also have the Note 10 is pretty solid at that like $300, $350 price point. And then we have the S9 Plus you can find easily for $200. The S10 Plus is still going for around $300. So they're all sort of in the same price bracket. So which one should you pick? What are the pros and cons of each brand? So let's talk about the displays. So one thing I've always noticed about the Samsung versus Apple thing is that Samsung is usually making some crazy nice displays. So even if we go older with the Galaxy S8, S7, those phones have always, to me, have had superior displays than the iPhone displays. So a lot of the older iPhones have these IPS panels. IPS panels aren't terrible, but they're nowhere near as good as Samsung's Super AMOLED panels. Now the iPhone 10 and the 10s do have those OLED panels, which are awesome, but you can get a Super AMOLED panel like the Galaxy S10e for super cheap. Like I said, $200. For $200 you're looking at like an iPhone 8, and that is going to be an IPS panel there. So I've just noticed that Samsung has done a great job with display technology. Even if we look at the S21 Ultra versus the 13 Pro, the S21 Ultra still has the better display. It's got the punch hole. Apple still has kind of the intrusive notch in their phones. So I've just noticed that. So displays on these older Samsung flagship phones just seem to be overall just better to me. So that is one thing that I noticed. So I would definitely say if you're into watching a lot of content on your phone, you definitely are going with a Samsung device here, because even for the cheap, you can get a great display. And also, there is no older iPhone with a 2K display. So say for instance the Galaxy S10 here, it has a beautiful 2K display here, and it is super sharp. So if I go ahead and load up YouTube, or if I'm just playing games or whatever, it's super sharp, and everything is just super sharp. Icons, super high PPI. So these are beautiful displays that just have aged so well. So that is one thing that I love. So I think Samsung pretty much takes the cake here when we talk about displays. Alright, so the next category is going to be software support. This is where Apple is just extremely good. So a lot of Apple's software support, the reason why they're so good at it is because they control the hardware along with the software. Now Samsung, they only control the hardware, so they only control the physical phone. They don't control Android. So it's easier for Apple, since they have more control over iOS, to be able to get you those updates to older devices. And also Apple, they just make less iPhones, so they can sort of focus in on just their flagships. Samsung makes a ton of phones, from the flagships to the mid-range to the budget phones. So they do a lot. So there is a price to pay, there. So software support, if we look, the iPhone 7 is running iOS 15. If we look at the Galaxy S9, it is indeed stuck on Android 10, I believe. Now, the cool thing about Android, since it's open source, is that it's easier to root and easier to port, like Android 11. It's easier to port those on there, but you have to be more tech savvy. So, it is a way to get the software support, but like I said, you have to be tech savvy. You have to know how to root your phone and import ROMs and blah blah blah. I used to do it. I don't do it anymore. But that is one thing. iPhones do have longer software support. So let's say something like the 10R. If I compare it to the S10, the 10R is most likely going to get. We know it's going to get iOS 16. It's most likely going to get 17, if not 18. The S10, all of the S10 phones, this is the last major OS update. So Android 12 is the last major OS update for these phones, and then they'll get 3 years of security patches. So all that means is that Samsung is going to make sure that for the next 3 years, your phone is going to be, pretty much safe and secure from major threats, but it's not going to get that Android 13 update. So there is a price to pay there. So just take note of that. If you want longer software support, then you're definitely looking for an iPhone if you really care about like getting the major OS updates. All right, so the next category I want to touch on are the features. So Apple took the headphone jack out of I believe it was the iPhone 7. So the iPhone 7 was the first phone to remove the headphone jack. As you can see, the older Galaxy phones have the headphone jack, the S9, all the S10 phones. The Note 10 series does not, but majority of the older Samsung flagships, you have the headphone jack. And I think depending on which phone you get, like if you get a Note phone, you're getting a really nice, a ton of features. Like the stylus is super slept on. It's something that Apple has never really dove into. With the built-in stylus, if you're into digital artwork and stuff like that, or you just want to navigate with a stylus, that is a really slept-on feature. Samsung has some really nice features in their software in One UI, as far as the secure folders, the Samsung desktop support. Also, you do have on here the wireless power sharing. So if I wanted to charge like some earbuds or another phone with my Android phone, I could do that. That's something you cannot do on iPhones. So one thing that people really love about iPhones is really the FaceTime and iMessage. That is like the main thing I hear people talk about. So a lot of people I've heard have said that if Apple put FaceTime and iMessage on the Play Store, I think a lot of people would actually switch to Android, honestly, because that's the main reason why people use iPhones, is because of the FaceTime and iMessage is a really good service. So you cannot downplay that or sleep on that. So that is one thing that a lot of people like on iPhones. One thing that Apple has not yet adapted, or not adapted, but adopted, is the two-method authentication, or the two-method biometrics. So what I mean by that, the phone like the S10 Plus has two ways of getting into your device. So if I have my under display fingerprint sensor, which works really fast, it works great, and then I also have Face Unlock on this phone. Now granted, it's not as secure as something like Face ID. Now something like the 10R, 10S, 10, you only have Face Unlock. Now Face Unlock works great, but there's no option, there's no physical fingerprint scanner anywhere or in display on any iPhone. So that's always one thing that I've just sort of missed on Apple phones. But that is one thing that you should know feature wise. So if that interests you, I thought you guys should know that. Now on some of the older iPhones, you do have your Touch ID, which a lot of people love. But it just depends on what you want. But Touch ID is still really great, works great. But again, Android has two methods. iPhones usually only have one method. Maybe we'll see it with the iPhone 14 Pro. Alright, so I want to talk about image quality. So if you guys have seen my comparisons that I've done against the newer flagship versus the older flagships, camera comparisons and speed tests for both iPhone and Android, these older flagships have great image quality. So I think that a lot of people get fooled thinking that they're getting a dramatically better camera. It's usually not a super dramatic difference. If you guys check out my iPhone 8 versus 13, a lot of people were shocked at that image quality. It's the same thing for the Galaxy series. So if you're thinking about buying one of these phones, just know that you're going to get an excellent camera. It really doesn't matter. What I will say is that the older iPhones like the 7, the 10R, the 8, They all have just a single lens, so they don't have an ultra wide or a telephoto. You would have to get the plus models like the 8 Plus and stuff like that, or the 10s and 10. But yeah, so just note that. But these phones take phenomenal photos, phenomenal photos. And yeah, so image quality is going to be great. They've aged well. I do think iPhone takes really good video as well. I always sort of slightly like video, how it looks on the iPhones. But other than that, these phones do such an awesome job at image quality. Alright guys, so I do want to talk about gaming lastly. If you want a really great gaming device, I really like the Samsung phones. Because they have expandable storage. One, so if you play a lot of games, you do have expandable storage option. None of the iPhones have expandable storage. And also for the just a super cheap, like I said, the S10 is gonna play way better than the iPhone 8 or 8 Plus or iPhone 10. So it's cheaper than these phones, but it'll give you better gaming quality. So you can play PUBG high settings, Fortnite, pretty much anything you throw at it, it'll play at high settings. So if you're wanting an iPhone, you're gonna have to pay a little bit extra money for a phone with an A12 chip. So you will be getting something like the 10R, which would be able to play games at high settings. The 10S. You can also get the SE if you want like a smaller phone. But I would say gaming to me is just better on the Galaxy phones if you download a lot of games and stuff like that, because you have that expandable storage. And I also think battery life is just going to be slightly better than these older iPhones like the 7, the 8, and stuff like that. So it varies, because the 8 Plus has good battery life, the 10 has pretty decent battery life, 10R has good battery life. So it does vary, but like I said, for gaming, I just prefer the screens on the Galaxy phones and also that expandable storage. But you can definitely get some good gaming performance out of iPhones for sure. You're just going to have to make sure you get an A12 and above. Alright guys, be sure to let me know, what are your thoughts on older Galaxy flagship versus the older iPhone flagship. So be sure to let me know down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.